Hello, everyone. Welcome to this virtual and dynamic conversation. I'm Veronica Kesnick. I'm very excited to have everyone here from all over the world. Before I get into my prepared speech, despite the unprecedented times that we're in, and for lack of a better word, I think it's very cool that we can travel to France for an afternoon and be with one another. So thank you all for being here. On behalf of Atlanta Contemporary, I welcome you. Atlanta Contemporary and Les Abattoirs will partner together for a dynamic conversation between executive directors Veronica Kesnick, myself, and Annabelle, Ténèze, moderated by the impressive Dr. Maria Poole, who is the director and curator at Clark Atlanta University Art Museum, and who I will introduce more fully in a moment. Before I do that, I would like to say thank you to Pascale Bayart and her team for bringing this event to fruition. This conversation was her idea, and I am grateful to all of the work she's doing in breathing new life into the French-American relationship in the Southeast. This conversation is in concert with France Atlanta, an annual series of high-caliber events centered on innovation and designed to foster transatlantic cooperation and exchange in the fields of science, business, culture, and humanitarian affairs. This 2020 marks France Atlanta's 11th edition. The France Atlanta event series is organized by the Consulate General of France in Atlanta and the Georgia Institute of Technology under the high auspices of the Ambassador of France to the United States, the Governor of Georgia, and the Mayor of Atlanta. This conversation will center on how we as directors steward our respective organizations through these unprecedented times, with a focus on the relevance of promoting contemporary art and artists during COVID-19. In addition, we will speak on how our organizations navigate the importance of gender equity and address racism and inequality. In addition, we will provide an opportunity to further promote friendship and cultural understanding between Atlanta and Toulouse, who have been sister cities since 1974. So I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Poole, who I am honored to be able to introduce today. Dr. Maria Poole is director and curator at our colleagues right down the street, the Clark Atlanta University Art Museum. She received her doctorate in cultural anthropology from Emory University, and her professional training was attained at Williams College Museum of Art, the Walters Art Museum, the Smithsonian National Museum of African Art, and Spelman College Museum of Fine Art. As a museum's director, her emphasis is strengthening the organization's infrastructure and providing opportunities for the next generation of museum professionals. She oversees the Tina Dunkley Fellowship in American Art, a collaborative diversity in art museum leadership initiative involving the Clark Atlanta University Art Museum, the Pennsylvania Academy of Fine Arts, and the Zuckerman Museum of Fine Arts. In addition, she is developing the Black Optics Artist Residency, a platform that connects artists of African descent from the American South to artists and institutions in the global South. So it is my pleasure to turn it over to Dr. Poole.
Okay, thank you very much, Veronica, for that wonderful introduction. It is my pleasure to be the moderator of this conversation today, and I will begin by introducing our interlocutors. So Veronica Kesnick, who you just heard from, is Executive Director at the Atlanta Contemporary, where she guides artistic programming with an array of independent curators and program partners. Kesnick joined Atlanta Contemporary in June of 2013 as Development Director and was later appointed to the role of Executive Director in 2015. She authored and executed the Capitalization Fund grant that underwrote Atlanta Contemporary's transition to a free admission, which since then has radically transformed its annual attendance by doubling the number of visitors. Kesnick earned a master's in philosophy and art history from the University of St. Andrews in Scotland and a bachelor's degree from St. Mary's College in Indiana. Currently, she teaches at Agnes Scott College in the art department and also serves as an adjunct instructor in art history. Thank you for being a part of our team today. And Annabelle Ténèze, who is the Chief Curator and Director of Les Abattoirs in Toulouse, a museum of modern and contemporary art in Western France. From 2006 to 2012, she served as the first curator of the Graphic Arts Cabinet at the Picasso Paris National Museum. She then became the head of Rochechouart Museum, where she has organized many solo exhibitions and became known particularly for championing the work of women artists. Since her arrival at Les Abattoirs, she has presented several monographic retrospectives, solo exhibitions, and partnerships with notable institutions such as the Centre Georges Pompidou in Paris and the Hirshhorn Museum and Sculpture Garden in Washington, D.C. Welcome, Annabelle.
Thank you.
I would like to begin our conversation today just kind of grounding the conversation in the discussion of what it means to be sister cities and determining what's distinctive about both cities. So could you please tell us what makes your city a distinctive place for art and the role your institution plays within its ecosystem? Annabelle, we'll begin with you.
Thank you. Thank you very much for the introduction. And I'm very happy to share with you more about Les Abattoirs. So Les Abattoirs are settled in Toulouse. Toulouse is the fourth city in France. And it's a city which brings together historical background, and also it's a very young city with a lot of students. Maybe the biggest city for students after Paris in France, and also a city very well developed with science, thanks to aerospace industry and a lot of science industry. And at the same time, what is very different, I would say, for Les Abattoirs is Les Abattoirs is both a museum and a FRAC, Regional Funds of Contemporary Art. So that means, as a classical museum, we are settled in a building, which is, as the name says, a former abattoir, so a former slaughterhouse, really. But a slaughterhouse, which was built in the mid-19th century. And I would say the architecture looks like more a church than a slaughterhouse. And it has been renovated to open in 2000. As a place for collection, because we have an important collection, 3,000 artworks, and also a place for exhibition. But what is very different, I would say, is that as a museum, we bring together a very different range of exhibition, modern art exhibition, more contemporary art exhibition, but also our main goal is also to do exhibition outside of the museum, which is really the goal of the regional funds. So that means every year we do 40 exhibitions outside the museum in places which can be a library, which can be hospital, which can be a historical building, but also in places very different as both hospital, jails, and we work also closely with around 50 schools, very different schools, in which we do also exhibition with original artworks. So our main goal is to bring people to come to us in the museum, visiting exhibition, collection, going to the library. We have an auditorium doing a lot of cultural program, but also the idea is that also we go to meet the people outside the museum. So I think that's also something which creates a lot of dynamic and also a lot of work. We work closely, that means with people who are not used to contemporary art. And this is something very important for us, is really to open the museum to everyone and to bring the museum to everyone and to make the museum as a home, but also to go into the home of the other. So I would say that means even if we are in a very urban city, of course, we are close to the center. We go also to area in the countryside where you have very few cultural institutions. And what we like is to do both, I would say, doing main exhibition and also doing, I would say, mainstream and big exhibition at the same time, very specific program with everyone.
That's incredible. Can you tell me how large your team is?
I would say the team of Les Abattoirs is around 40 people, but if we count everyone, I would say we are around 60 to 70 to work into the museum. And we have around last year, we were very happy to have more than 200,000 people coming into Les Abattoirs, and to have, I would say, we touch the same amount of people, 200,000, in the exhibition outside Les Abattoirs. So that means both programs are as important.
Thank you. And Veronica, could you share with us what makes Atlanta Contemporary distinctive within the arts ecosystem here in Georgia, and particularly within the city of Atlanta?
Absolutely. So Atlanta Contemporary was founded in 1973 by artists and for artists. And so I think that centering of the artist is really important to who we are in our core mission. Our mission is to engage the public in the creation, presentation, and advancement of contemporary art. And not unlike our colleagues in our sister city of Toulouse, Atlanta Contemporary is in a rather unusual building where we moved in 1989 to the west side of Atlanta, which is being radically redeveloped right now. But we're in a historic landmark district designation building where it was Rockefeller's old truck repair depot. So we've turned this industrial building into an ideal place for the presentation of contemporary art. And I think for us, with the fact that we're centering the artist and the art at its core, it's been very important to engage and work directly with artists. So we give exhibition opportunity to artists who are still emerging or mid-career. Some are more established, but definitely their presentations and exhibitions are oftentimes their first exhibitions in the South and in the context of the Southeast, and sometimes to their first main museum type exhibition as well. So we really foster their careers. We underwrite and pay all of our artists to present their work. So currently, for example, we have an exhibition called She Is Here, which also speaks to a historical part of our organization, which was to support working artists through studios. So we have 14 studios on this campus, and over the 47-year history have seen an incredible array of artists move through that program. So She Is Here supports those individuals, women, in this current exhibition by allowing them to showcase what they've been working on during COVID. But the free admission really was a catalyst for who we are today and how we speak to Atlanta today. A lot of individuals, pre-COVID barrier, or cost is a barrier to their participation at museums. So our radical elimination of admission fees was to support education and discourse and dialogue with audiences that typically lack access to the arts. As well as we know, Georgia is 49th out of the 50 states for government funding in the arts, and oftentimes arts is not a core academic field in the school system. So we aspire to be a place where people can come and gather and be challenged and see works. So yeah, I think for us too, we're free admission also changed our demographic diversity almost overnight. And now our diversity better reflects the city that we're actually a part of. Contemporary art and art can feel rather esoteric and exclusive and siloed, and free has really transformed that and brought in new audiences that frankly were challenging, but I think they challenge us too.
Thank you. I actually like the fact that you brought up the fact that your institution is very thoughtful about what it means to do contemporary art in the South. And so as a follow-up question for you, I wonder if you could discuss a little bit more or elaborate about what makes presenting contemporary art in the South distinctive from presenting it in other parts of the country, particularly areas like New York or Chicago or LA. These sites are considered to be the center of art in the United States.
Yeah, I think it's important for us to remember that, you know, I'm an art historian, so that contemporary art is the art of today. And, you know, you have to think that Picasso was a contemporary artist when he was working, and Da Vinci was a contemporary artist when he was working as well, or Gentileschi, which of course is getting radical, amazing reviews right now of the exhibition. But it is often centered in place where New York or Los Angeles or Chicago or Paris had been the space and the place for artists to be and work. But that's not the case. People are working and living and doing exceptional work all over the world. And for us, having artists present their works in cities that are under-recognized, I think, for the work being done by the artists is really important. And, you know, in a way, too, we're affording our artists that work and live in Atlanta an opportunity to engage with national, international, renowned regional artists that, you know, we kind of say sometimes that we bring the outside in to impact the work being done by the local. Artists typically do not have coffers of cash to root themselves and travel all over the world, particularly now. So our space becomes a nexus, which was our namesake, for people to come and experience themes that are concurrent despite region.
Annabelle, I actually want to ask if this is also true for you. I mean, generally in the context of the United States, when we think about contemporary art in France, we automatically think of Paris. So I wonder if you could speak in light of all the outreach that you have from your institution. Could you talk a little bit more about what it means to do modern and contemporary art in Toulouse versus France?
Yes, thank you for the question, because of course Paris is so well known. But I have to say that when you look at Toulouse, but also other parts of France, you really have artists settled everywhere. And we could say the same with Art Center and FRAC. We are very happy in France to have FRAC in all the region, Art Center in a lot of places, and we have a quite active artistic art scene, especially in the south of France, I would say, all around the south of France. And when you talk about Paris, that's true that we always say that all the France is focused on Paris. But for example, when you look at Toulouse, for example, we are also very close to Spain. For example, it's faster to go from Toulouse to Barcelona and to Madrid than to Paris. So, for example, Toulouse is really a southwest city in which we are focused on France, but also on Spain, because we are very close to them. And through Spain, a lot to all the Latin American people, because of the communities. And of course, also close relationship with all the countries around Mediterranean, because of course of the French history of migration, but also because of the place where we are. And that's true that we are very focused on that, because it's a way to be at the same time local and global, because we talk a lot now about local and global, and I think we shouldn't oppose one to the other. As Veronica says, it's very important to support and to sustain the art scene around us, but also to bring people from outside to engage with the local people and to engage with them. So I think we have to articulate both and don't oppose it. So we try, to bring art scene from outside. So for example, 2 years ago, we worked a lot in partnership with Medellin and Museo de Antioquia, and we bring a lot of the Colombian art scene and Spanish art scene last year, and we are working now with African curators and artists this year. And at the same time, it's very important to focus also on this local art scene. And I like also to exhibit artists who were born in Toulouse or around the region, but who now are living far away. For example, we exhibited last 2 years, I think it's 3 years ago, 2 artists from Toulouse who are now in New York. But I think it's very important to look at the fact that also the life of today for everyone, including the artist, is also moving to a place to another, and also to create new history, but to stay also close to the roots. So I think it's very important, and we work a lot with last year with a program all around the region, which was called I Was Born a Foreigner. And for us, it was very important because it was to work with the people who came around all along the 20th century in our region, and to make them the connection with the migration and movement of today. And so it's very important to look at, if you look at around you, you have also a lot of story of people who came all along all the centuries. So I think it's really important to, especially today, to look at this history and to look at and to compare it to now, in order to understand how we can, we are all, I would say, shaped by the fact that we are from somewhere else and from where we are at that moment. So I think it's very important in order to be open to, at the same time, to the local and to the outside.
This is really wonderful to hear that you have like quite an extensive history of looking at the interactions and the encounters of people who are local and people who are transnational. Could you talk about how your activities have been impacted by the pandemic?
Yeah, I could say that in a way, we could say that one thing we are telling each other every day now is that we are open, we welcome people again, and we are so happy of that. That's something which is great. And after the time we spent in lockdown, to be able to be in the museum, to have artists, to have artworks, and to have people coming to visit us, something which would have felt so normal last year, it's incredible now to have that. And of course, the relationship we have to the people, I would say, is more intense, more important than ever, because now we know what it is to be cut from the visitors and from the audience and from the others and from the artists and so on. And I think it has been a difficult time because, as everyone, we did digital program. We tried our digital program to be a lot on education, because we knew it has been a very good time for teachers and so on. So we tried to be quite simple in the content, to be on the education side and so on. But at the same time, I think it has been very difficult to think that a lot of things we do with the people, we do it to interact with them, especially the people in the suburbs, of people who are less used to come to us. And we work a lot with the association and so on. And we need to work together to be able to bring all these people inside. So at the same time, I think we know also what it is to lose some relationship. So I think it's something we really have to bring to have to be more careful about. And of course, as everyone, our exhibition program is not only this autumn, but the one that is used to be 6 months ago. But there is a lot of solidarity between institution, professional, with the team, to be able, even if it's not the normal program, and that usually we work 2 years ahead, to be able to do new things, even if the others have been cancelled. And I think it is still difficult to work with. For example, we are working now with African artists, and they are far away. And we work with Maria Poole, who is 90 years old, and she's in a home for retirement people. And all these for all these people, it's very difficult to travel. So we have to find a way to work with them, and to make their exhibition happen, because that means all the people who are far away, who cannot travel, who are very old, they will be the first people to don't have exhibition anymore.
Mm-hmm.
So I think we have to be very careful to don't have double punition. You cannot move, so you can have exhibition and so on. So I think it's really things we are thinking about now. Even if it brings more work, we have to be careful to go on with inclusion, equity, especially now, but because equity is more difficult in our times.
I'll follow up with you about this last point that you made about the difficulties of equity. But first, I want to have Veronica please chime in to talk about the impact of the pandemic on the Atlanta Contemporary.
Yes, so we're very similar to our colleagues in France that we pivoted immediately, right? We closed and temporarily shut down and very, very quickly prioritized digital programming over in-person programming. But it was almost like the day we closed was the day I started thinking about how were we going to reopen without knowing what that date was going to be. And we were making decisions in seconds and in moments that we normally would take months to figure out. And at the core of all of those decisions were kind of the idea of trust, right? How can we inspire trust of our audience, not only in terms of our contemporary art programming and our exhibitions, but also how can they trust us to come into our space, and what can we do to ensure that they remain safe and healthy. And so one of the things that we really considered was the cleanliness and health and safety of our building. Atlanta is a very diverse city where a disproportionate amount of individuals, particularly BIPOC, are disproportionately affected by COVID, and the majority of our audience is made up of those individuals. And so it was really important to us that we couldn't open our doors until we did what was right, the audience that we're serving. So we installed a brand new fancy air conditioning system that allows for bipolar ionization to make virus cells inert. We're hoping that this is, that it's working. But we also are cleaning the building every single night. And when we, similar to Annabelle, when we were thinking about reopening, we extended the show that we had on view, and we upended our entire exhibition schedule and really decided to focus on the regional, local artists that are directly making up our community. We know that people aren't going to be necessarily traveling right away. We couldn't bring in the artists that we had been talking to from New York. One reason is just how do we pick up the work, let alone how does their work relate now? The shows that we were talking about are not, they're not irrelevant, but they're radically going to be different because of how all of us are experiencing this time. And so the current exhibitions and the next show of the Atlanta Biennial were reshuffled to really ensure that we were speaking directly to the artists that live within our community, and kind of similar to Annabelle, prioritizing individuals who could travel to us easily, who ensure that we retain equity and diversity in who we're showing. It's not been easy. I don't think it's been easy for any of us, but it's been really important to center, as I've said, the artist and the patron, so that they, we're tastemakers in a way, but they have to trust us before they listen to us and what we're saying.
It seems like you've been pretty thoughtful about how to engage communities that were disproportionately impacted by the virus, and where they're also, because of your active role in ensuring that access or that financial or economic status would not be a barrier to access and exposure to what you do at the Atlanta Contemporary. that you are kind of in some ways right in line with where people are or where they're pushing people to go this summer in the United States in terms of reckoning with race and inequity and what's happening in the field at large. But I guess my question is, like, with all of your efforts that you've been making at the Atlanta Contemporary, who do you feel like you're still not able to touch? Who do you think you're missing in terms of the people who are coming to the gallery? Or maybe another way to state that is, who is your current audience and who do you wish you could give more access to your institution?
Absolutely. That's a great question. I am a Caucasian woman. Majority of my staff is Caucasian. And I think that we've done a really good job historically in putting artists who reflect our diversity that we desire on the walls, but not necessarily in terms of executive leadership, both on the team at Atlanta Contemporary or on our board. And so, there's a hesitance there to trust us in making those decisions if these people do not see themselves reflected in individuals that are guiding the mission and vision of the organization. And so we're kind of going back, right? We made decisions back in January of 2020 to work with independent curators to ensure that equity and diversity and access is being reflected in the voices of the people that are selecting the artists. But we have a lot of work to do. And Atlanta is a very diverse city. We have a high population of African-American individuals, Latinx individuals, and Korean and Chinese individuals. And so we're really working to ensure that our gallery guide is translated into Spanish. We're partnering with more organizations that serve specific communities. And I think I don't know if I want to prioritize one group over another, but I want us to be the space that people feel that they are safe and welcomed at. And I think that's a big part of who we are. We're also, this is something that we're working on, but I was giving a talk a few months ago and was talking about the history of our building, which dates to around when the Civil War ended. And I realized that that's not where our history actually started, that there were indigenous peoples and indigenous nations that lived on our land. And so we're reckoning with that as well now, and acknowledging their land. And so we're making land acknowledgement statements, and we're going to be doing more earnest efforts to be the space that people need us to be.
For you, Annabelle, in the context where you work, how do these issues play out in terms of your staff? Do they reflect the diversity of the population that you serve?
It's a very good question. As other museum institution and cultural institution, we are also mainly Caucasian, but we have also people from other diversity. And we try to bring into the museum, of course, other people than a normal audience. We do that in a few different directions. For example, we have work on that with our education and cultural program. So, for example, we partnership with a lot of very different kind of association, institution, and so on. So that means we work, from school to hospital and to also social center in the suburbs. And that's really help us to gather people who sometimes don't know at all what a museum is. So, for example, one of the last social program we did just before the lockdown, where we only women, mothers mostly from North African migration, and with all this social program, we make them come to the museum, but also create artwork themselves in the museum and in the suburbs. And we gather together, and we were so happy to be in the museum, but they know what a museum is, and that they can come, and we could give us a lot of free access for their family and so on. And I do think that is the things we have to go on with, because that means, of course, we try to range the larger audience, but we have to have this quality time with other people in order to bring them into the museum, and also to try to understand who are the people who don't come to us. And we try also to do that when we do the exhibition outside Les Abattoirs or the regional program, because that means we can go in school, I would say we don't go only to the school who are in the good I would say headquarters of a city. We go also in very different kind of suburbs, and we try also to have this diversity in the artists we show. For example, we did 2 years ago an exhibition, a retrospective of an artist called Essie, and Essie was one of the only Black woman artists who had visibilities in the 70s in France, in Paris, which is something very rare at that time. And she hasn't had any retrospective in the museum since the late 70s. And our work works with fabrics, and it's an amazing works. Which was totally forgotten. And when the people sometimes realize, this is an old Black woman artist with disabilities, and she did all this amazing work that she called survival art, that means also that people can see themselves in her. And I think that things we try to do too is to, for example, we're exhibiting a young artist from Toulouse whose name is Guillaume Bresson, and Guillaume Bresson really who went to the School of Fine Arts in Paris, so a very well-known school. But before, he was doing breakdance with his friends in the suburb of Toulouse. And this is the people he paints in his art. And these people, they came to see themselves in his painting in the museum. And at the same time, the same thing, it was the first time they entered the museum. Of course, it's very specific moment, I'll tell you, and this idea is to be more inclusive with everyone. But of course, we have a lot to do, and we have a big agenda on that, because we still have to figure out exactly who we miss. Because as soon as you try to make new people come, you realize you miss other people, and we really try to focus on that. And to make the museum more inclusive, we worked a lot about gender too. And for example, our next exhibition, the first work will be a work by Mexican artist Teresa Margoles about transgender. And it's the first work about transgender which entered the collection. Mm-hmm. So we are very happy to... and it's only the second time in the museum history we talk with artwork about transgender. And I think this is all of that which we must try to make open to the others, that everyone reflect themselves also in the exhibition.
Are you finding that there's a questioning or a crisis happening in Toulouse where people are wondering also about the relevance of the type of shows that you're doing? And to give you a little bit more context to that question, right now there's a lot of discussion in the United States about the impact of the pandemic on teachers and people who are at home, the disproportionate effect on women who have to also educate their children. So we have high levels of anxiety, not only within the household, high levels of domestic abuse. We have challenges where we can't use the traditional mechanisms to address the issues because people are quarantined or they're stuck at home. In your place, it seems like more people are able to be out and about, but are you finding that there's a demand or a questioning about how to use your space to kind of address some of these larger social ills within the society, rather than just the representation of a diverse group of people, but it's like diverse issues that really speak to some of the real challenges that people are facing in terms of, I guess, health, mental health, food, poverty, things like that. Could you talk about whether or not your institution has been thinking about that, or the curators have been thinking about how to address these issues, if they have at all.
We think about that, and I have to say we try to find solutions, but it's not easy at all to find solution. Especially we are thinking, how do we can be in touch with people who first consideration or first thing or who first need is to have food or to have job. It's very difficult to address that. That's why we do what we do. We say we work a lot with co-construction. Co-construction, that means we try to work with association, to work with other groups and so on, because when we work with people with disabilities or with other problems, you need to learn their language to be able to talk to them, because it's very important to try to understand their language. I think so, because we have the language of art history, and we have to learn to translate with art history to the reality of the others. And sometimes how to do that is not easy to find. For example, our education team worked a lot for years in order to have a very important program with people with disabilities. We begin to work with some association with people who lost their jobs and were without job for a long time. But that's true that it's very difficult. Last year, we worked a lot with the association to be able to be in contact with migrants. And we really need to find, I would say, human resources in the society to make the links and the relationship, and to help you to find the good language to talk to the others. Because if you don't know how to talk to them, you are not efficient. You are not efficient, and they don't feel welcome. But I would say it's very difficult, and it's really on an agenda. And I think we really see that we don't have as much a group coming from school than not as much as last year. So as you say about safety, it's very difficult for now teachers to organize groups to come. That's why we have to adapt ourselves, as Veronica said, to make them realize that they are welcome, that it's a healthy environment, and to help us to come back again. And we have to make everyone come back and to open again. But it's I think it's more difficult than it used to be. And we have to find new solutions, and we don't have all the solution now to do that yet.
Thank you. Veronica, I'm going to pass it to you. I know this is a difficult question, but I also would love to hear your thoughts or maybe discussion of maybe initiatives that you and your team are developing to figure out how to meet people where they are today in light of the crises that we're facing and all of the things that I presented to Annabelle. Have there been any conversations or plans to figure out how to partner with institutions to show how to make art significant in light of the crises that people are dealing with at home within the domestic sphere, and also the economic crisis that's facing us today?
Absolutely. I think this is a question too about intention, right? What is the intention behind the agenda here, to use Annabelle's word as well? My program coordinator, Nisa Floyd, is doing an amazing job in identifying opportunities for us to be more intentional in our outreach to communities. We've been limited by our budget over the many years, and we've been more of an in-reach institution. So inviting people to come to us, which, as we know, given the constraints of COVID and the fear, as well as just the sheer inability to pick up and leave your home, how do we take what we do in the galleries and create a plan to kind of ship it out or provide it to people who are stuck at home? And at first we started doing kind of similar to others, on Instagram, the idea of, make art at home. And then, of course, we realized that a lot of people don't have access to the internet and don't have computers. And so we started making, kind of going back to our roots as Nexus Press, of making zines. And NISA has been really remarkable in reaching out to partnerships through the West Side Future Fund, and particularly our neighborhood directly, in packing art kits and zines that they might not be able to see the works in person in the galleries, but these individuals, kids, as well as seniors and individuals that are suffering from food insecurity. So we've partnered with Meals on Wheels here in Atlanta, who, when they deliver food, they also deliver this zine. So something fun to do that perhaps is maybe not necessarily the social justice work, but it is fun and escapist and beautiful. I think one of the things we're charged with is not only being a space and a place for people to gather over really complicated and complex historical issues and critical discourse, but it's also really important for us to be a space and a place where people can transcend where they're at and perhaps see something beautiful or experience something that helps them think differently about an idea. And so we've been working very hard, NISA's been working very hard to identify who those individuals are, who those outreach partners are, and provide these resources to them. And of course, we're doing it with our own limited resources. So now that we've been doing this for the last 6 months, we're serving this community, but our own dedicated funds are running low. So now we're going back to funders and saying, we've been doing this. How do we increase our capacity to do so? And for those schools that are back and open and that have digital resources, we're doing digital tours of the galleries and providing kind of walkthroughs of what they would see if they came in the past or in the future. And I think we're at this really pivotal moment where digital programming is here to stay. One of the barriers to some of the schools coming to Atlanta Contemporary has been that they didn't have transportation. But if we can get them computers, if we can get them digital programming in the classroom, then we can bring the art to them. And so it's really almost in a way highlighted our own needs to be doing more in both the digital and the practical, printing things out on a copy machine, folding them, stapling them, putting crayons and boxes together and shipping that out to those kids and communities and individuals.
I actually want to follow up on something that you said about thinking differently, when this is really like towards the end. We have 10 minutes left, so this is going to be like the final question for both of you, but it's really about leading us to a space of imagining, or who we are and what we've been required to do in light of the climate that we're in. So I guess the first question is, and it's going to be a two-part question. So part one of the question is, could you talk about how the convergence of the pandemic and the subsequent economic crisis has forced you to reimagine the work that you do? And you've kind of circled around it, but I want you to kind of state it explicitly. And part two of the question is, what innovations or changes have you made because of the crisis that you hope to continue, and what do you hope to forever leave behind? So that's the two-part question. Let me know if you need me to repeat it. And so we'll start with you, Veronica.
Okay, I'm writing down the question so I don't lose my place. Like everyone, this has not been easy. As funding is rightly prioritized to support health and safety or schools or children, it's we're considered non-essential. right, in terms of the government. Of course, I've never felt more strongly that arts and culture is essential as we navigate the vitriol and hate and horror that exists on our news media and just in social media, that that arts and culture is just one, but is a very important tool and mechanism for us to comprehend our space and place in this time. And yet, you know, the American Alliance of Museums is estimating that 1/3 of the museums in the United States will close. And I don't want to be a statistic, right? So it's something that keeps me up at night and keeps me awake, is, you know, the funding and the realities and the apprehensions around that. I've joked a couple of times, it's not a funny joke, but I've joked a couple of times that it would be really easy to stop swimming and to give up. But we're not. And, you know, we're creative individuals in a creative industry. And it's frankly, if we can't figure out how to do this, then what are we here for? So I think, you know, that's the reality that we're faced with in terms of in the economic crisis of the pandemic. But in terms of innovations made, you know, it's a big burden to say to your team, okay, we're going to temporarily close, everyone's going to work from home, and there's no boundaries whatsoever. And, you know, you all work 8-hour workday. And I don't know about the rest of us, but that doesn't exist. You know, the work-life balance is a total myth. But we have made really sincere efforts to make innovations that support outreach and that are, you know, fun and dynamic. We've definitely partnered more with institutions and organizations that we had wanted to in the past. And, you know, because everybody's at home, they pick up the phone. So that's really been wonderful. But I think too, there are some things that we might have to maintain for the next couple of years, or at least 18 months of keeping shows up a little bit longer than we typically would. Just because we're not sure not only of funding, but also of what COVID and the pandemic will do to the necessity to temporarily close again. So we've extended some shows. I'm not certain that that's something that we're going to keep for the future once we figure out what the new normal is. But I think it's something that for now we are maintaining. I hope that answered the question.
It was a pretty open-ended question, so I just wanted to see where you all would go. Annabelle, what about you? What type of innovations have you made because of the pandemic? What will you keep and what do you think you should leave behind?
In fact, in the middle of the lockdown, we were, as Veronica said, organizing ourselves, and most of the organization was to keep each other with each other, doing digital program, and of course canceling things, canceling. And at one point we had a conversation with someone from the team, Emmanuel, and she told me, we will have to cancel one of my favorite programs since I have at Les Abattoirs, that we created 3 years ago, which is called Horizon d'eau, so Horizons of the Water, and we do it with a festival in partnership with a musical festival called Convivencia, and around the Canal du Midi we do exhibition in a very different kind of place, and also we commission an artist to do new work on a boat. And the boat is the place where the musicians come to play for the concert. And that means it's really a moment when art is involved in the life of community, because we go from small village to small village, and we inaugurate art exhibition at the same time the festival do the concert, organize the concert, and that means it's really part of the country life after a few years, and it was very difficult for us to think that this summer we won't go with the artist, the musician, the other festival to do our tour and meet people and create artworks. And it was quite depressing. And so we figured out how much money we had on this program, which is not so much. And we launched an open call to the artists from the region saying, this is the amount of production, the amount to pay you. It will be outside. And do you want to create an artwork? And it was simple like that. And we say, people will think we are crazy. And 100 artists answer back. And and we motivate ourselves with a young woman from the festival. They decided to organize the concert, even with smaller audience, and to organize concerts in the courtyard of Return on Mars or school or in the countryside. And finally, doing artwork outside, normally you have so much difficulty to produce, to have all the authorization and so on. And in a way, everyone was so much in solidarity, but we had the authorization for every artwork in 2 weeks. Normally it would have taken 3 months. And I remember the first artwork we launched and the first concert, it was the first time for months we listened real musical instrument. No music coming from a box. And all this artwork we were thought with no places. We don't know where we will hang it. And it was like a small miracle. And we are thinking, that means we can do that. It's not so complicated. And that's something we want to have in mind, that of course we will have less money. Of course, it's a lot of people will think that we are not essential, but these moments we spent together with the people who are there, with the artists, with the musicians, with the one who were there, they were essential. They were essential. The old people in the retirement houses, most of them, they see no one, and they were listening to real musicians. And that was something so moving. And I cannot think that we had this idea in our kitchen, that the artists respond to that. And I think for us, it gave us a lot of motivation for a month ahead, but we can still do things. And we still have to do things, because even if we are not considered essential, I think the artists are essential. Maybe not us, but the artists are essential to the people, and our mission, I think, is essential. Our mission is essential because we are able to bring the artists and the audience together, and that's I think I have to say that we still have to have faith in ourselves and our institution, in the artist, and to go on with it, even if we have to work differently with less money and in the crisis.
Thank you very much. So we are now at the end, and we're opening this up to the public for questions. Thank you both.
Thank you, everyone.
Yeah. I think we also, just so everyone knows, we had our live stream. I believe it's ended. So we are going to be completing this and recording this. So as well. And I have to say, Annabelle, we did a really dynamic partnership as well. We have this incredible open air pavilion as an asset, and we partnered with Dance Canvas, who is a dance and performance-based organization. And that's something I should have talked about that, Marita, too, but that was one of those moments where you make a phone call and somebody says yes, and usually that takes, months, but we're all just so excited and desperate and wanting to do the work. And it was transformative, the last 2 months of seeing dancers move on our campus and perform for an audience. I mean, we sold out. And tickets were, $40, and only 35 tickets would be sold, and they sat socially distanced from one another. But, when people were there, they were just just in awe, not only of the beauty of the dancers and their work, but also from how we just, we're coming together as a community. Brandon just let us know, by the way, that the stream is finished, and he says, thank you from Elevate and the City of Atlanta of Cultural Affairs.
And it seems as though we have a question from someone as well, from Bruno Latour. He sent a question. What are the suspended activities and behaviors that you would like to see not come back, is what he's said.
Wow.
I don't think I have anything that I don't want to come back. I have definite things that I want to come back. I mean, we had to postpone our huge annual fundraiser art party, which we're definitely feeling the implications of not having had the fundraiser, right, in terms of our bottom line of our budget. But I will say that it was quite nice not to be having to plan a 2,000 person party in the middle of the summer and worry about rain. I become a kind of couch meteorologist for about 3 weeks in the month of August, and am beyond vigilant about checking the weather. So not having that as a stress was quite nice, but I don't think our budget would allow us to not bring that back. But I really want to see kids back in the building making art, and I miss that. And so that's something that I'm looking forward to, is having our lecture hall and the 6-foot tables that are covered in paint, and that when we put them out for event rentals, we quickly have to cover them with our linens. But in that moment, I love seeing the mess of all the kids over the years, and I miss them.
Yeah. I could say the same thing. I miss having more people in the building, because of course we cannot let as much people as we used to have. So I would love to see more people coming, and I would love to see again some people kiss each other in the museum. That is something I would love to see again. Another thing, I think we were thinking a lot how to be more sustainable and to be more simple, to reuse more walls and so on. Because, for example, we talk a lot about ecological ecological calendars and so on. So I think we have to. But it's not easy, but to find a way to be more simple and more modest in some way of working. But something I really miss is people kissing each other in the museum.
Well, Marita, I want to ask you a question, since
sure,
you've been moderating. I mean, you're a director of a museum and institution as well. So to kind of flip it to you, what do you see your role is, particularly as a university museum, and what are you going to do?
Well, this is something that I think about all the time, and it keeps me up at night, because unlike your institutions, I am so connected to, it's almost like I'm a limb or an organ that is within a larger body. So I can't really move independently of the university. And currently Clark Atlanta University is all virtual. The campus is closed. So we don't have any traffic that comes there. And so we've been using the time to think about how to take art outside. So I was very pleased to hear about your activities, and particularly those of Annabelle, because it really has me thinking about how to do more work with artists where we can put things on the quad or around the campus so that people can engage with the history of art of the African diaspora in Atlanta simply by driving by. And similar to both of you, we've had a very challenging time of bringing in audiences, even though we've always been free. We're free and open to the public, but we have a very small but mighty staff, as people like to say, a lovely staff of 3. And that means that we're limited in terms of what we can offer, but we also are open by appointment, which a lot of people don't know. So I'm very concerned about people's safety, but I'm waiting for our senior administrators to give us the okay to let the community come to campus, and at the same time, getting in the community so people can interact with the work of contemporary art, and an exhibition that we're calling Landscape Symphonies that is actually inspired by a work from the permanent collection that was done in 1957 by an artist. So that's pretty much where we are. Oh, there's another question from Alina Apernu. So she says, this is not a question as much as a comment and appreciation for the essential work you are doing to open up a space for audiences to discover and change their preconceptions about contemporary art. Also, my daughter and I love walking around the show and reading room. So, yay.
Hello?
Okay. Yes.
Hi.
Are you there? Yes.
I'm here. Okay. Yeah, I just wanted to thank you both. I know Veronica and Annabelle, merci. I really love the space of the contemporary, and I think that the fact that it's open to the public and free is a huge thing. I know that you worked very hard to make that happen, Veronica. But yes, I mentioned in particular being there with my daughter, because I find that the accessibility of contemporary art, because of the materials used, because of the questions it raises, is wonderful for young people. And I am excited to come for some of those events that you mentioned, Veronica. But I just wanted to let you know that we came, got our time tickets, saw another family there with a young boy similar in age to my daughter wearing our masks, and it was wonderful. Thank you for doing the work, which I think is essential.
Well, thank you. I'm sorry I missed seeing you. I ran into Alina at a Publix the other day. So it's nice to see you here. Thank you.
And just one last little shout out to Amanda Gann, with whom I was actually in graduate school. What a nice surprise. So anyway,
yes.
Thank you.
Have you some questions?
Yes, we have a question. Pascal, you're the next person. Please ask your question.
No, because Amanda, have you some questions? Because you know very well the performing arts and the relation between museum and performing arts, and perhaps you have some questions?
Questions in regards to the ecological programs. We also have Diana Du, who has a question. Please ask your question. Diana.
Yes, I want to speak in French because my English is not very well. So, bonjour Annabelle, je suis Diana et pour l'instant je fais ma thèse dans l'université de Toulouse 2 en art plastique. Et en fait, il y a une chose que j'aimerais bien... there is someone to translate my...
Yes, there is.
Yes.
OK. Il y a une chose que j'aimerais bien partager avec vous, c'est que l'année dernière, j'ai participé à un concours qui s'appelle ma thèse en 3 minutes. Et puis, c'est pour... parce que déjà, je viens de la Chine, mais ça fait presque 9 ans, 10 ans que je vis en France pour étudier l'art contemporain. Et... mais l'année dernière, quand je participe à ce concours, j'ai remarqué que je suis la seule doctorante qui présente dans ce concours qui parle de l'art. Et j'ai regardé aussi ce concours, il vient, le premier concours est origine d'Australie, il me semble, et maintenant il est international. Mais dans plein de pays, le champion n'est jamais le doctorat en art. Et en plus, il y a des jurys qui me disent que malheureusement, les spectateurs trouvent, s'intéressent plutôt la recherche sur médecins, sur voilà, des domaines pour eux sont plus pratiques. Et donc, je me sentais très, très seule. Et et surtout, j'ai fait une performance lors de ce concours. Et eux, ils aiment bien, mais ils trouvent très bien. Mais malheureusement, ils ont quand même pas attiré autant par l'art. Et donc, qu'est-ce que vous pensez sur ce phénomène-là? Et même si en tant qu'un travailleur en art, on dit tout le temps que l'art contemporain et la communication, mais on a quand même la difficulté. Merci.
Maybe I'll summarize quickly before we get Annabelle's answer. Yeah, so Diana is a doctoral student at Toulouse 2, studying visual art and specifically contemporary art. And she was saying that last year she participated in a competition which is presenting her thesis in 3 minutes, and noticed several phenomena. So one was that she was the only doctoral student presenting on art. And the response, and following this competition for several years, there's never more than one person in the competition working on art, and that person never wins. And the feedback from some of the jury of the competition was that people are more interested in what would be considered practical fields, like medical research, for example. And so, so the question is, there seems to be an idea overall that contemporary art is engaged with the community and is engaged in communication with communities. However, there does seem to be a separation between what the goals, the stated goals, perhaps are, and the recognition that's being shown.
Thank you.
So I may answer a few things. That's true that sometimes people outside of our field don't think the response of the artist or response of the art history are practical. So I would say, in a way, try to build a bridge between different disciplines. For example, as we are in Toulouse, we work a lot with science. So, for example, which is one of our program we like very much is we have a long-term program with Ténèze, and Ténèze is the French NASA. And so the French NASA commission artworks, and after the artworks belong to our collection, and we do program around that. Because what is very interesting in the program is sometimes you don't realize that the scientist you can realize the scientist is as much in the creativity as the artist, and also that the artist can have creativity based on science too, and especially that they can work together. So that means, of course, we can really, we do that for science, especially, but for example, for our last commission on the boat, the artist decided to work with a florist. And the florist was totally part of the program because she helped the artwork to have flowers, but to have to work with the flowers in order that we don't throw them, and that at the end she can reuse the flowers for other things in a shop in order to not use flower just west, which is something which was very important for the artist. And I think we really have to do this bridge. For example, we worked last year with someone who is a sculptor in chocolate, and it's a young man who creates the best chocolate in Toulouse, and he creates a sculpture for us to give to the artist. And so I think we should really build this bridge. And I think it's so, Diana, I think it's so great, even if you were the only one, to go to be in this competition, because you were the only one, but I think everyone will remind you and what you did in this kind of competition. I like this competition, which is doing your PhD in 3 minutes, explaining it. And I think it's great, but as a young artist, you were part of it and you are doing well. I think they were too surprised to give you a prize yet, but I think it's great, and you have to go on doing that in order, yes, to say that you can be an artist, and being in the same competition as a scientist. So congratulations to dare to do that.
Amanda, perhaps a translation in French?
Oui, Diana, je pense qu'elle a compris, non?
Ok, d'accord.
I think I'd also like to follow up to kind of say that what Diana is doing is critically important and something that we as curators have to think about a lot. Like most recently, I had a group come to me to ask me if I would like to partner to kind of think about ecological issues, and particularly the impact of the Mississippi Delta on kind of this blending or merging of racial and environmental racism or environmental justice issues, and how we can use art and literature as a mechanism to get people to reflect on how these issues that sometimes are perceived as though they're separate are in fact very much intertwined and have an impact on populations even when we don't realize it. And so what we're doing at the museum, in part thanks to the support of France Atlanta, or for the French consulate by Pascal Bayard, is working with universities in Mississippi and in Georgia, as well as cultural institutions, to look at the work of artists and writers historically, as well as the work of contemporary visual artists, in terms of looking at the bridge between the impact of environmental problems throughout the American South, inspired by the most glaring issues, or where you can see it in this most extreme, in Mississippi, along the Mississippi Delta. And so sometimes to be able to think that way is very difficult for all parties. And we're just at the beginning in terms of our discussion, and the conversations are very, very hard. But I do believe that once we come together, we will reach broader audiences, because we're using a different mechanism to get people to think that justice or social justice can't be thought of separately. You can't just think about racial issues. You can't just think about poverty. There's also the very real issue we have with climate change and the environment that all of us have to reflect on. And then when you bridge it, it really works well. But it's only because of artists like you, Diana, that this would have even come to my attention, or to some of the historians and the writers who I'm working with. So it's just a long-winded way to say thank you for being courageous enough to participate, because this is needed if we're going to come up with the innovations to transform the societies in which we live. So.
And you organize, it's in November, you have an event, Morita.
Well, the event in November is just the beginning of spreading the word. What we initially thought would take us only a couple of months, we've discovered it will probably take us half a year to do it really well, because of the conversations that we started in the summer. So even I was surprised by how difficult it would be to create this bridge and to bring people together. So our event on November 5th is essentially us kind of communicating and telling people where we are and what we're doing. But yeah, so we're just at the beginning to embark upon something that we hope will inspire people to build alliances to address these issues of social and environmental justice.
Yeah, it's open to the public, and the audience can participate, and it's very interesting to put you in touch.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So we only have, oh, I'm sorry, Pascal. We only have like 5 more minutes. So if anybody has any final closing remarks or questions, I do want to once again thank Pascal and the France Atlanta team and Elevate and my own team at Atlanta Contemporary for making this happen. And of course, I would like to thank Dr. Maria Poole for being our moderator and fearless leader. And I'm so excited to have met Annabelle and her team, and thank you as well. It's very clear to me that we need these sort of partnerships and relationships and conversations to make us better. Art is an incredible language, and it transcends language itself. It is the language of form and color and content, and we don't have to speak French in order to understand what we're saying. But it is an honor and a privilege to be able to host this event, and we're very, very grateful.
I would like to thank everyone. It has been so great to talk with you, Marita and Veronica, to exchange. And I really want to go on to have this kind of conversation with you and to be able to share and to support each other. And thank you very much to Pascal and all the team from the French embassy and all the team of Les Abattoirs who helped me around me to be there. Thank you so much, and thank you to everyone who listened to us and who exchange ideas and who ask questions. And I do think that sharing with each other and support each other is really what we have to do again and more and more. Thank you so much.
Just a beginning. Yes. Thank you so much.
Can you hear my voice, Pascal?
Yes, we can now. Yes.
So I'm sorry I was silent through the whole time. I'm just on my cell, so I'm not on my laptop. But thank you all. Thank you, Pascal. Annabelle, we met in Madrid when I was with the High Museum. I've since moved to Harlem. And I hope that you are able to collaborate as sister cities. It was wonderful to hear all of your voices, Veronica, Marita. And
I'm so happy to hear from you.
Yes, it's a big surprise. And
so, thank you. I'm going to sign off, but thank you all.
Thank you so much.
Stay in touch. Come visit me in Harlem.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye. Thank you so much.
Thanks. Thank you for your conversation and your participation, and I hope we can continue this participation and these links, and very, very well. Thank you so much. I think the city of Toulouse and the city of Atlanta want to continue the conversation.
Absolutely.
Everyone.
Okay, we're going to end. Annabelle, have a glass of wine for us. We're going to keep our day, but go end your day. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Bye.
Bye. Merci.